Alright, hello everybody again. I'm back. It's probably for a while just gonna be me. Tech's pretty busy right now. There's a lot of stuff going on with her, and I'm going to be getting pretty busy too in the future. A bunch of family events coming up and all this and that. But in the background, there's some Minecraft playing, but I put that on because I wanted something a little simple so I can tell you all a story about how my last, it would have been a week ago? Yeah, about a week ago today, actually. I got back from a trip. And that trip was essentially what I could only describe as traveling hell. A little bit of background, I guess. My family's always, we tend to always fly Air Canada. It's just personal preference. We really like them, and we usually got some deals on and this and that, so we would always fly with them. Like, for as long as I can remember, we always flew with them. Whenever we had our Florida house, we always flew with them. And my father works outside of where we live. We live in Ontario, and he works out on the east coast of Canada. So he has to fly out there for 2 weeks, and then comes home for a week, and then flies out another 2 weeks, yada yada. We went out there to visit him, since he's got a little condo out there, and we were expecting it to go pretty good. We've always had good experiences with Air Canada, except for one time actually. March break, we flew Tech up from the U.S. She came up here for a week, and they ended up losing her luggage. But that's aside the point. We decided that it would be fine. We would have a good time, yada yada. And we got there. We got to the Toronto airport and got out of the car. Went up there and it was completely empty. It was we left on a Thursday, so it was completely dead in there for domestic Canadian flights. We were through security, everything in 10 minutes, and we're like, all right, so this is great. We can sit around, relax for a bit, and just wait for the plane, because we ended up getting there like 3 hours early. So we sit around, we go to lunch, this and that, and we take out our boarding passes, and we look at them, and we notice that it has for both me and my mother, listed as our seats, is a code that says GTE. And we're like, well, what's that? Why doesn't it have our seat on our boarding pass? So we go up to our gates and we talk to the counter person. Well, we try to, and instead she just puts up her hand like, don't talk to me. So we're pretty confused at this point. We ask to speak with someone, and then finally she talks to us and says that GTE means that you are on standby. And if you aren't familiar with traveling much, then standby basically means we're trying to get you on this plane, but even though you paid for your tickets, chances are you aren't. There's a very high chance that you won't get on. It basically means the plane's too full, and if by some miracle someone ends up not being able to come on, then you have a chance of getting on. So, as you can imagine, we were pretty pissed at this point. Domestic Canadian flights, they aren't too cheap. And, like, this was eating into my mother's vacation days. So we didn't want to end up getting stuck in Toronto for very long. We wanted to get out to the East Coast as quickly as possible, so we didn't end up wasting vacation days. But we ended up actually not getting on the flight. And we had to go stand in line then for probably about 40 minutes in the customer service line for Air Canada. And we ended up talking to the person, and they're saying basically that due to the conditions in St. John's, so it was rather quite foggy the last few days, and they actually only have 2 runways at the airport, at St. John's Airport, one of which is fully shut down, their longest one, for upgrades, and the other one is significantly shortened for upgrades, meaning that the pilots basically have to get their landing just right, or else they either undershoot the airport and land in a forest, or overshoot the the runway and land in a construction site. And so whenever they have too much fog, they can't see the runway and they don't want to risk it. So they call it off. So that had been happening. It had been really foggy for, I think it was 3 days in St. John's at that point. And they were just, every day flights were getting canceled. There have been people literally staying in the airport for 3 days at that point trying to get on a flight. So we stand in this line, get to the person, and they tell us that, and as they go, all right, well, we'll try our hardest to try and get you onto a flight. So sit there for another little while, and then eventually she goes, all right, so, right now what it looks like we'll be doing is getting you onto a flight that's going to take you to Halifax. Halifax is another coastal city still attached to the mainland. It's about I think it was an hour and a half flight from St. John's. Yeah, St. John's is about a 3-hour flight from Toronto, so it is sort of like stopping over halfway. The flight didn't leave until like 10 o'clock. We're like, whatever, 1 day late, not too big of a deal. Let's just get there and have a good time. So we take the offer and we go there, get on the plane, fly to Halifax. We get to there, and we were told by Air Canada, they're like, for your trouble, we're going to give you a bunch of stuff. Here's a bunch of free meals. We're going to pay for your hotel rooms, and we're also going to pay you $800 each for your trouble, which we ended up coming out on top with like $200 in total after the expenses of the flight, so it's pretty good. But we get to the hotel, and we check in, and it's like 1 in the morning. And we were tired at this point. Oh, another thing also, they told us at the customer service, they're like, all right, yeah, the plane hasn't left yet, so we sent out an order for your bags to be removed so we can go and revert them to your new plane and take them with you. So like, all right, great, at least we'll have change of clothes in the morning and our toiletries and pajamas and all that. Get to the airport, not there. Bag didn't show up. Bag stayed on the plane, went to St. John's. So we had no changes of clothes, nothing. We went to the hotel at that point, tired as anything, just wanted to get to bed, and we find out that the only rooms available are single-person rooms, and Air Canada was only willing to pay for one. So that meant that me and my mother had to share this tiny, tiny, tiny little room. Only one bed. It was not a fun time. After that, we woke up, caught our flights. It seemed like it was going to be pretty fine from there. We got into St. John's probably about close to dinner time on Friday night. No, it would have been Thursday night. We were supposed to get there on Wednesday, and we got in on Thursday. So got in Thursday night and went to... we met up with my father. He picked us up from the airport, drove us into town. We went to the condo that he has there, stayed there for a bit. It was pretty nice weather, and it was actually quite warm that day, nice and sunny. So we're like, all right, let's go have some fun. So we went out, went to some pubs, just had a good time. And it seemed like all the travel hassle was behind us at this point. But then the next day rolled in, and pretty much the shittiest weather you could possibly ever ask for rolled in, and stayed there for the entirety of the week. It was cold, it was raining, it was windy, it was just miserable. We never saw the sun at any point throughout the entire travel, except for the day we got there and the day we actually left. It was just absolutely miserable weather, nothing good to do, because if you've never been to St. John's, basically, most of the attractions there, it's two things. It's cultural stuff, so the pubs, the music, just meeting the locals, and it's the physical attractions. Like, it's a beautiful place. It's home to the most easterly points in North America, Cape Spear. It's a beautiful little old military outpost used by the Americans and the Canadians during World War II. It's just this beautiful place. It's the Signal Hill. It's an old fort. high up on top of a cliff, looking out across the Atlantic Ocean. It's just stuff like that. The mountains, the lake ranges. That's the stuff you go there to see outside of the cultural experience. But you don't want to do that whenever it's this miserable weather. Like, we go out to any of these places and it's all elevated. Like, the entirety of St. John's coastline is a cliffside, so everything's high above sea level, and it is just, you feel like you're gonna Mary Poppins off the top of a cliff whenever you're standing up there. So we ended up going to a couple things. We went to, like I said, the Cape Spear, and we went to Signal Hill. We went to places like that. It was nice, but it was like, you couldn't help but feel kind of miserable standing up there. And outside of that, it's just like, I am drinking age in St. John's is 19. It's basically that, I think, for the entirety of Canada. So I couldn't go out and drink. I could go during the days and go hang out in the pubs, which was fun. But as soon as, like, the drinking hours started, I was basically, SOL. I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't do anything. So I had to sit in the condo basically the entire time we were there, which sucked, especially for me. Other than that, so basically I had a crappy time just there. We went back. We were supposed to leave on the Tuesday. My father's work schedule goes that he flies out on a Tuesday, stays in Labrador, which is a more northern point of Canada, to do a construction line there, a power line going to Maine. And he stays there for a week, then flies to St. John's on Tuesday, does a week there of office work and stuff like that, and then on the next Tuesday flies back to Ontario, stays there for a week as sort of a break, so he doesn't get weekends off, and does that. So we were going to leave on the Tuesday that he would leave, so we all fly back on the same flight. And we get to the airport and find out that due to the cloudy weather, it's the planes weren't landing again. Like, no planes whatsoever, except for very small airplanes that were flying from Toronto City Airport, which is a little island airport, directly to St. John's. So these little planes that had no trouble taking off in these conditions. But the bigger jets, the A380s or whatever, the ones that most airlines operate, at least for us, they weren't taking off. So basically Air Canada's entire fleet was grounded for that day, and we couldn't get out. So we ended up going back to the condo, and at this point we've essentially seen everything that St. John's had to offer in terms of, like, the local area, since it was just still really crappy weather. We didn't want to drive out into the province at all. We wanted to just try and stay local, but we are extremely limited, obviously, so we ran through what we could see pretty quickly. So we sat in the condo again, didn't do anything, sat around, another thing, only one TV, so we had to essentially set up a schedule where it was like, alright, an hour of what you want to do, an hour of what you want to do, an hour of what you want to do, so on and so forth. It was not a fun time. But after they told us, call back throughout the night and see if we can try and get you on a new plane. So we did that, couldn't get on a new plane. They were just, because they were trying to push everyone who'd missed their flights the last few days onto new planes, and that just was overbooking them to crazy amounts. So we couldn't get on to anything, basically. We had to sit there and just do nothing, really, other than sit around at home. Finally, on Thursday, we got there, and they're finally, here you go, here's your flight. And we got on it, and of course, we the day that we finally got out, the weather cleared up, and of course it was like the nicest day we had there. It was like beautiful weather, and we could have had a blast there, but fortunately we got stuck with crappy weather. We finally got out though, so yeah, at least that happened. We got home. Oh yeah, it sucked, but I just wanted to share that with you guys. It was sort of a messy time. It was pretty crazy. It sucked. Thought you guys might, you know, enjoy hearing someone else's pain for a week, and yeah. So anyway, don't know how often I'll be putting videos up. It's going to be pretty crazy. We got a lot of stuff coming up. I got driving out to Ottawa for a week, doing stuff like that. I got university starting September 14th, so I'm gonna start getting prepared for that. Just got a lot of running around to do, and any days that I'm not basically gonna be doing that, I'm generally gonna be with family. So I'll try and squeeze in some videos here and there. Obviously, like I said, Tech's just not going to be part of this for a while. She's spending a couple weeks, a lot of time with family and friends before she has to head back out to university to start doing residence assistance training and stuff like that. Get ready for school. So don't know. For the next 2 weeks, definitely she won't be around. After that, hopefully she can start getting back into this soon. But until then, it'll just be sort of sporadic videos for me. So anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.